Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about identifying with Jesus. The word identify derives from the Latin word facere, which means make. The word identify also means treat as being identical with. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 45 reads, "The first Adam became a living being, the last Adam a life-giving spirit." So that lets me know that the first Adam was of the flesh and the last Adam, aka Jesus Christ, is of the spirit. There are two types of people in this world. There are the ones who identify with the flesh, and then there are the ones who identify with the spirit. You know, the first Adam, the last Adam. When you take on an identity of something or someone, you take on the whole characteristic of that person. In the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 13, it reads, "Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived they were uneducated, uncommon men, they were astonished. And they recognized that they had been with Jesus." Now, when it said that they were uneducated, it was talking about they didn't go to rabbi school or they didn't have any formal training in Old Testament theology. And later on in that verse, when it says, "and they recognized that they had been with Jesus," the word recognize means to identify. It means to know again or to recall to mind. You know, so when they were speaking bold, the way they was acting, the way they carried themselves, the people say, they look like Jesus. Oh my God. So are we doing that? Do we look like Jesus? You know, when people see us, do they see Jesus? When we look in the mirror, do we see Jesus? You know? In Matthew chapter 7, verses 2, when Jesus was giving a parable about the, I think it was about the tree. Oh, no, it wasn't a parable, but he was just saying, you shall know or identify the tree by the fruit it bears. So what are we producing in our lives? I mean, who you are is not what you do, but who you are is not, what you do is not who you are, but who you are does affect what you do. So what kind of fruit are we bearing? You know, we're not, we're beings of habits. You know, what kind of habits are we picking up? You know, is it good habits, bad habits? But it really doesn't matter if you got good habits or bad habits. The only habit you need to have is Jesus. The Beatitudes, you know, when he was talking about the Beatitudes, this is the attitudes to be. Identity. This reminds me of the story of the prodigal son, where, you know, in the beginning of the story, he went to his father and said, "Give me all my money." So the father gave it to him. I know the father was very reluctant, but he gave it to him anyway. So the son went off to a far country, spending on prostitutes and party up. Then there was a famine in that land. Y'all know the story. So the son was trying to find a job, and he ended up finding a job slopping hogs. So as he was feeding the hogs, he came to himself. The part I like, he came to himself and said, "What am I doing this? You know, my father's servants is treated better than this. I'll just go back and tell my father, you know, you don't have to look at me as a son anymore. I'll just be a servant. Just let me come home." So as he was walking back home to where he left, the father was from afar, you know, kept looking like he was looking out. He saw his son from afar. So he ran up to his son, and I'm quite sure the son saw the father, but he was probably rehearsing in his head, "I'm unworthy, I'm this and that." But when the father came up to him, just embraced him, fell on his neck and kissed him. And then after they got a moment from embracing, he probably, you know, was trying to recite what he was rehearsing in his head. You know, "Father, I'm not worthy." And I can see the father saying, "It doesn't matter." You know, bring the coat, put a ring on his finger, put sandals on his feet, kill the fatted calf. See, when he went, the prodigal son went off to the far country, he lost his identity. But when he started coming back to the father was putting the rings and the sandals on his feet and the coat on him. The father was giving his son back his identity. And that's what happens when we come to God. we're lost. Mankind lost their identity in the garden. But Jesus came to give us an identity. And the only way we'll have a true identity is in him. So my thing is, wherever you go, make sure you represent Christ. If you say you're a Christian, make sure you represent Christ, because it's hard to believe somebody can be a Christian and denies Jesus by their actions. So y'all make sure y'all represent. Yeah, peace.